Good evening and welcome to the Non-Strategic Planning Committee. I'll start with item 1, apologies for absence and notifications of substitute members.
Through you, Chair, we have apologies for non-attendance tonight from Councillor Beryl, with Councillor David Gaskell substituting, and also apologies from Councillor Muna Kali with no substitute.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any of the members of the committee have any declarations of interest in any of the items under consideration at this meeting? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I have an interest in items 6 and 7 as the councillor who called them in, and I will be withdrawing from the meeting and speaking against them.
Thank you. Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. I have an interest in item 9, and I will also be speaking and withdraw from the meeting when that.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, minutes. Do we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 24th of July are a correct record? Yep. Okay, thank you. I'll sign those. Thank you. Okay, item 4, Chair's announcements. Members of the public are permitted to film, broadcast and report on the meeting, subject to the efficient running of the meeting not being affected. Only those who have registered in line with the committee's speaking procedure may address the committee. Members of the public are requested not to call out during the committee's discussions on any item. Anybody who repeatedly disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave. All speakers will have 3 minutes in which to make their statements, except where the Chair's discretion has been applied, and are asked to remain seated after they have addressed the committee to answer any questions the committee may have. This meeting is being webcast on the Council's corporate YouTube channel. Therefore, when speaking, please speak clearly and concisely into the microphone at all times. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm does sound, evacuation instructions will be given by Democratic Services. Please ensure that any devices are switched off or on a silent mode. For the benefit of the public watching remotely, I will now introduce the top table, starting at my furthest right.
Teresa Boyd, Planning Solicitor.
James Edmonds, Democratic Services Assistant Manager.
John East, Chair of the Planning Committee.
Eamon McDowell, I'm the Area Planning Officer, Team North Area.
Okay.
Nathan Healy, Planning Officer.
Okay. Okay, so now move on to item 5, proposed pre-committee site visits. There are a number of items requiring a site visit that are due to be heard on the 4th of September meeting of the committee. Such site visits will be held at 10 a.m. on Tuesday the 2nd of September, and the details will be circulated by Democratic Services in due course. Item 6, 8 Stimpson Avenue, Northampton. I will now hand over to the case officer, Nathan Healy, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for a change of use of a C3 dwelling to a 7-person HMO, including a rear dormer and a single-storey rear extension. Members should be aware that a further objection was received since the publication of the agenda. This can be seen within the addendum. Next slide, please, Amy. On the slide now is the site location plan. Next slide, please. Here is an aerial view to help orientate yourself. Wellingborough Road is to the right, and Abington Avenue is further up to the left. Next slide, please. As can be seen on the screen, planning policy supports the conversion of C3 dwellings to HMOs, provided they accord with 4 key principles. Next slide, please. Principle 1 relates to the concentration. As can be seen on the screen and is stated within the report, the proposed development is considered to be below the 10% threshold. Next screen. Principle 2 relates to facilities and amenities. For the reasons stated within the report, the proposed development is considered to provide future occupants acceptable amenity. Next slide. As can be seen on the screen, the site is located within flood zone 1 and is therefore not liable to flooding. Next slide, please. Principle 4 relates to highway safety and parking. As you can see on the screen, the parking within the locality is at capacity. However, in line with the HMO SPD and the recent appeal decisions, this is not considered detrimental if the site is considered to be in a sustainable location. Next slide, please. As you can see on the screen, a sustainable location is defined within the HMO SPD. The maps on the screen and the report demonstrate how the site is in accordance with these parameters. The report also goes on to address issues such as noise and disturbance and nature conservation. Overall, it is considered that the proposed development is policy compliant and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now invite members of the committee to ask any questions of the planning officer. Are there any questions? No. Okay. We now move on to public speaking in the following order. So, Councillor Zoe Smith, the local ward member.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Zoe Smith for Abington and Phipsville. This particular property, there are a number of concerns we have about. I'm also speaking on behalf of Councillor Purser, who's not able to speak tonight. There are a number of concerns we have about this property. One is that it is being developed beyond the natural size of the property. This application is for 7 occupants. These houses in this area were not designed for that many occupants. They don't have that many bedrooms. It's needed to be extended beyond the number of bedrooms and the number of rooms in the property in order to achieve this. And that means that it is pushing it beyond capacity. I recognise the sustainable location that is raised. However, you will note that in the report, both Northants Police and the Highways Department highlight that this area is beyond capacity. Northants Police identify the potential of parking pressures in this area to impact on highway safety and antisocial behaviour, and that's also particularly pertinent with this property, as it is located very close to a busy working men's club on the corner of Wellingborough Road, with a lot of people coming and going using that property and being picked up from that property. So it's a particular busy area near a corner, where I believe an increase in cars will have a negative impact on highway safety and neighbourhood safety. And the other point, as I've made previously with applications, is the sheer number of comings and goings at this property. Where you have HMOs, you have people who work very different shift patterns, and if you've got as many as 7 occupants in an area, that will have a really significant impact on the amount of coming and goings, the disturbances to neighbours. With other applications, we've highlighted on advice of officers that lots of different comings and goings at early hours is going to have a negative impact on neighbouring residential amenity. So the planning conditions on which you could raise this, parking is still a material planning reason, despite it being an issue in terms of the sustainable location, but it is a material consideration, particularly defendable when Northants Police have raised concerns, and also on the impact on neighbouring residential amenity.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. We'll now hear from Carrie-Anne Wells, agent for the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. So firstly, I'm here as an agent of Applecore PDM. We have a growing reputation of designing high-quality HMOs over the South Coast and, more recently, all areas of the UK. We work closely with developers looking to provide high-quality, well-managed shared living properties, and we are passionate in ensuring tenants are provided with a high-quality living environment and only work with developers who share that passion. We have designed many HMOs, and our designs have never been subject to refusal of HMO licence. We ensure all of our designs are fully compliant with planning, building control and HMO licensing, and we work hard to ensure we stay at the forefront of any changes to legislation to ensure our client has the best possible experience, but more importantly, gives tenants the best possible living experience whilst being compliant with all the relevant regimes. It's becoming more and more apparent that many landlords are exiting the rental sector, for smaller HMOs are becoming less viable due to rising utility costs. This in turn places a greater need for the growing market in larger HMOs, which have been fully renovated and provide high-end, energy-efficient living with spacious bedrooms and well-designed communal areas. All bedrooms in this property significantly exceed the 6.5 square metre bedroom requirement and provide spacious bedrooms ranging from 9.3 to 11.3, all with the benefit of an ensuite. The required communal area for 7 persons to comply with licences is 24 square metres, and this property provides 25.2 of communal kitchen and living. There is also an additional WC for the convenience of the tenants at ground floor level. The back-to-brick renovation on this property will exceed £160,000 in order to fully upgrade the property to increase the thermal, energy efficiency and acoustic properties for the increased comfort of both the tenants and the neighbouring properties. The permit development works have enabled our client to offer 7 spacious rooms, all with en-suites and a large communal area. The owner of this property shares our passion in providing well-designed, spacious, well-managed co-living property. By welcoming HMO landlords with this ethos towards both the property and the tenants, it will only serve to increase the standards across Northampton, as other landlords will have to improve to compete, and we've seen this happen across multiple towns and cities over the UK. With the increased standards and well-managed HMOs, this helps decrease the negative perception and stigma these properties can attract with members of the public. The property is in a highly sustainable area with great access to local amenity and only a short walk from the local bus stop. It's in a great location with good links to local transport and therefore will appeal to those who do not own a car. The property will have a secure weatherproof cycle store located at the rear, which will also appeal to tenants who are looking to use cycling as a mode of transport. Looking at recent appeal decisions, a refusal on lack of parking is not considered that would be held up appeal. HMOs play a much-needed role in contributing to mixed and balanced communities, providing an all-bills included option for independent living. This is attractive for young professionals who may be moving around for work and also for those at lower cost options and students. The property will be finished to a high specification, will be professionally managed, and any issues, if they arise, will be dealt with promptly. The proposal before you fully complies with the National Planning Policy Framework and Part 1 and 2 of the West Northamptonshire Joint Core Strategy Local Plan, and also the Housing and Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning document. I wanted to pick up on a couple of things the councillor had addressed. So, as she mentioned about beyond the natural size of the property.
Please conclude your statement.
Pardon?
Please conclude your statement.
Okay. The planning officers fully recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you to fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay, thank you. I now call on Matt Greenwood, the applicant.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am the landlord of 8 Stimson Avenue, proposing a fully compliant, policy-aligned planning proposal. The reason for me speaking to you today, as well as my agent, is that I believe it is important for you to hear from the property owner and to assure you that I'm aware of my responsibilities in being a good landlord. I'm keen to ensure my tenants are provided with a high-quality living environment. As you heard from Kerry-Ann, this application meets every requirement set out in both the national and local planning policy. There are no material planning grounds for refusal in our application. Every technical report and consultee supports this scheme, showing it is fully compliant with our policy, with your policy. I will be investing a great deal of money into the renovation of the property to provide a high standard of accommodation. The property will be managed professionally and repeated disturbances will not be tolerated. Any complaints will be dealt with quickly and efficiently. It's in my interest to ensure the property has respectful tenants. The communal area will be well equipped, furnished and designed to encourage a social shared living environment for the residents. I'm keen to provide the tenants with a great place to live, spacious rooms that they can enjoy alone, but also shared space in which they can socialise with housemates. The property will be professionally managed with a robust plan in place to maintain both the standard of the accommodation and the conduct of its occupants. Regular inspections will be carried out to ensure the property is kept in excellent condition, and all necessary safety and compliance checks will be undertaken on time. Any concerns raised, whether by tenants, neighbours or the council, will be dealt with promptly and effectively. Tenants will be carefully vetted to ensure they are respectful and responsible, and clear expectations will be set from the outset to maintain a positive living environment and good relations with the surrounding community. I've never had an incident in any one of my properties, never had the police called, never had a property report to the council, never had any neighbour disputes, never had any antisocial behaviour of any kind, and I've never had any negative feedback from any parties. I trust that you agree with the officer's recommendation for approval, and I thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay. At this point, obviously, I'll ask the officers if there's any points they wish to come back on. No. Okay. So at this point, then, the committee will now move to debate the application. No.
Does a member want to propose?
Yeah. Does any member wish to make a proposal in favour of the application? Councillor
Thank you,
Cartwright.
Mr Chairman. Yeah, I propose that we accept the officer's recommendations as is.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Rainbow, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that proposal.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, obviously, we'll take a vote on the motion. So all those in favour? Okay. Those against? And any abstentions? Okay. It's a motion in favour then. It's carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 7, which is 4 Ivy Road, Northampton. I will now hand over to Case Officer Andrew McCreel to begin the presentation. You turn it on.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7, 4 Ivy Road, Northampton. This is a full planning application which seeks to increase the size of an existing HMO for 6 occupants to a 7-occupant HMO. Number 4 is a typical Victorian terrace situated towards the end of Ivy Road, so you can actually see the rear of the property from Abington Avenue. The photo should show the brick-built ground floor rear extension, which was approved earlier this year. The proposed extra bedroom would be within this extension. No further exterior alterations or other extensions are proposed. The floor plans show the proposed room layout with a communal kitchen next to the proposed extra bedroom. The extra bedroom is in green, the kitchen is in yellow. The property has an existing enclosed yard which provides a small outside amenity space at the rear. Following consultation, the Council's Private Sector Housing Department, who are responsible for licensing HMOs, have reported that they're satisfied that the room sizes and amenities would meet the requirements for a 7-bed HMO. The property has recently been granted a licence for a 6-bed HMO. 3 objections have been received from local residents. These objections on the grounds of the increase in the size of the HMO would exacerbate the existing parking problems in the area. It would have an adverse impact on residential amenities in the area, and it would further increase the concentration of HMOs. Now, with regard to parking, it's acknowledged that in this area there is little residual parking, and there is a resultant parking stress for residents. This is highlighted by the local highway authority response. However, In this case, the property is an existing HMO, and the proposal is for one additional room. Therefore, it's considered it's likely to generate only a limited extra demand for parking. Also, the property is located in a sustainable urban area, so within 400 metres of bus stops and shops on the Kettering Road, and it's a bit further, about 10 minutes to Wellingborough Road. This is a local centre, still considered accessible, and provides a good range of shops and buses. Officers therefore advise that it would be difficult to justify a refusal on the grounds of lack of parking. Now, with regard to the impact on residential amenities, in this case the proposal is for one additional bedroom, and this is not considered to be a significant increase in the size and impact of the existing HMO use. Therefore, it is not considered that the proposal would result in an unacceptable intensification of the use, nor would it be an unneighbourly development. With regard to the impact on the concentration of HMOs in the area, it's acknowledged that the existing concentration is about 23%, and that exceeds the 10% threshold which is advised in the Council's HMO supplementary planning document. However, again, it must be emphasised that the proposal is for one additional bedroom in an existing HMO. Therefore, the concentration figure will not be increased, and hence less weight should be given to this aspect in considering the application. Conditions will be imposed on the planning permission to control the number of occupants and also to require details of refuse storage and cycle storage. To conclude, it is considered that the proposal for one additional bedroom in the existing HMO represents an acceptable development which would have a minimal impact on the character and amenities of the area. The proposal would provide satisfactory accommodation for the occupants and is in line with the principles set out in the Council's HMO supplementary planning document. It would also be consistent with the aims of the relevant development plan policies set out in the report. Therefore, it is recommended that the committee approve the application.
Thank you. At this point, does the committee wish to ask the planning officer any questions? No. Okay. I will now move on to Councillor Zoe Smith, the local ward member, to speak against the application.
Thank you, Chair. Just some context regarding this property, which has been filled in by the planning officer, but I feel could benefit from reiterating. This extension, although the application stated there were no external alterations, that's because external alterations have already taken place, initially without planning permission and only with planning permission when enforcement were involved. And the applicant at the time stated, when he applied for planning permission, that there was no intent to increase the number of rooms, and therefore neighbours and I did not object to the extension, because the statement was it was to improve existing amenities, not to increase the number of rooms. So I think that's an important bit in terms of why neighbours and I did not object to the extension at the time. It's been recognised by Highways and by the officer that this is an area of extremely dense parking. And it's this is again a property right on a corner, right next door to another extremely large, densely populated HMO in an area massively overpopulated with HMOs and also small studio flats, inbuilt on inbuilt, not far from a 19-person HMO. This is a place incredibly over-densely populated, and the density is over twice what we agree in our planning statements it will be. And the analogy I've used in the past is that if I've got a glass of water that's absolutely full and I put a tiny bit more water into the glass, it will spill over, no matter how little the water in the glass is, because beyond capacity is beyond capacity. This is an area that suffers in terms of refuge, fly tipping, over-concentration of parking, and this one resident is one resident in a massive picture of extraordinarily dense over-occupation in this area that is just constantly, more than any other area in Abington even, bombarded with increases in HMO occupancy, and the impact on residents and the neighbours who are already experiencing great distress would be really significant. And I recognise I come back with a lot of narratives about HMOs in Abington and Phipsville, but this is honestly the place in Abington and Phipsville where this is more apparent and acute than anywhere else, and I feel it's important that the Planning Committee recognise it. Material considerations definitely could be residential amenity and the impact on the neighbours of the increasing comings and goings,
please conclude your
and the
statement.
subsequent impact.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. At this point, are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith. How long ago was this extension built when they said they weren't going to use it as a room and it was for amenities?
This was in February of this year.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. At this point, does the planning officer wish to come back on any of the points?
Just to emphasise that in this case it is a relatively minor development. It is an existing HMO. Consistently, recently, where HMOs have gone to appeal, the planning inspectorate have pointed out that if their view is that they will allow an appeal if they consider it to be located in a sustainable environment, which this particular one is, and is only the addition of one extra room.
Okay, thank you. So at this point now, the committee will move to debate the application. Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. As a result of Councillor Smith's 3 minutes, I would like to know about this comment that the applicant reassured the planning department that was for additional amenity space and not an additional room, and whether this has been explored with the applicant.
Again, Chairman, through you. I mean, the application that's before you is what it is. It's the use of an existing extension to the rear. What may or may not have been said in the past is not before committee. I hear what's been said about what undertakings the applicant may have given before. As far as I'm aware, that wasn't conditioned, and in any case, even if we're aware, the applicant's entitled to make an application. This is what's happened. This is what's before you this evening. And what you're being asked to do is to consider whether or not one additional occupation of an existing extension is acceptable on planning grounds, having regard to your own SPD, material considerations such as representations from neighbours, and obviously your own debate.
Just taking that point on board, and I am aware of that is the case. But in future, when we have applications such as the one in January, would it not be worthwhile for officers to consider that in all cases there is a condition put on that it's not converted into additional bedroom space, which might just make it that much harder to resist?
Again, through you, Chairman, even if there was such a condition, the applicants are entitled to make an application to vary, remove that condition, or indeed to allow further occupation. So even if that were the case, I don't think it sort of alters what's before members this evening.
Councillor Rainbird.
I don't think that's working. I just wanted to ask the officers, how come the HMO percentage is so high in the area within the 15-metre radius?
It's not necessary that they've all come before the planning department in the form of a planning application. Obviously, over the years, there's been more applications for licences, and some will have come through as planning applications. But I can only look at that sort of figure and think it's you know, it's historical. It's what's built up, and that perhaps the information that we've got on HMOs and their numbers now is a lot more than what was there perhaps 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, probably more than likely historical, which is the reason why an SPD was introduced in order to gain greater control over the concentration. Certainly, but it is what it is. You've heard that it's a highly densely occupied area.
Yeah, no, I would just like to know why, but obviously, historical, I get that.
Okay, any further questions from the committee? No? Okay, thank you. So at this point, obviously, we'll move to debate the application. Although we're already there, does anyone wish to make a proposal at all? Yeah, Councillor Cartwright.
Reluctantly, Chair, I move that we accept the officer's recommendations as is.
Okay, anyone second this? No. Okay. So what do we do in this situation typically? Don't have a seconder.
Through you, Chair.
Okay.
If the proposal isn't seconded, then I don't think it proceeds. But the obvious next step is that then there would need to be an alternative recommendation proposed.
Okay, so does anyone wish to make an alternative proposal? Everyone's gone shy this evening.
I recommend that we refuse this proposal.
Okay, and does anyone wish to second this?
Sorry, we need some reasons for the refusal. You're going to have to expand.
Simply because of the over-expansion of that area and the litter that it may incur, and also the parking.
Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Frost.
So we all want to make sure that what we agree here is upheld in the event of an appeal. And through you, Chair, can we? How do I phrase this? Can we get some advice from the legal and planning representatives about how to proceed here? Because it's in none of our interests to make statements and make proposals that can't be upheld. Could we ask for some advice?
I think I would look to Eamon for why those reasons for refusal. You haven't really entered into a full debate, so it's quite difficult for officers to actually
Again, through you,
assist.
Chairman, you have our advice. It's set out in the report. The report clearly assesses the proposal against all the planning merits, against policy, against the concerns raised locally about objections to the application, and on balance, officers have come to the view that the proposal is acceptable. Members are entitled to go against that, but clearly you have to then articulate that as a reason for refusal. And the Councillor Phillips, is it? My eyesight's not okay. Has obviously indicated reasons for refusal. If you want my honest answer, I wouldn't feel comfortable defending that at appeal. But that's my personal professional view. But you are entitled to come to a view and vote on that as long as you can articulate that in a way that demonstrates you've had regard to the officer's report and come to a view yourselves.
Chair, thank you, Lee. Yeah, we are where we're at, aren't we? I mean, I asked the question because the committee hasn't been able to support the advice and approve the application. So put it another way then. If we go on highways grounds, it doesn't sound like we're going to get much embellishment here, but I think there's enough on highways grounds to refuse this. this. So in the absence of any feedback from the panel, I'd be happy to second the proposal on this one.
Okay. Do you wish to summarise?
So to clarify, Chair, Councillor Phillips may put forward a proposal that mentioned several grounds. Councillor Frost has said he would support it on highways grounds. Is there a distinction there between the original proposal and what Councillor Frost has talked about he would be prepared to second?
This is well as rather than instead of.
Okay, so we had a proposal from Councillor Phillips to recommend recommend refusal on the grounds of forgive me, I need to look to read it to help word this. Impact on the local area in relation to parking, and litter was mentioned, but is that expressed in terms of impact on the local environment? And
again, through you, Chairman, you've got parking and you've got litter, and you've now got highway. Was it just additional parking? So what we're saying is that the members consider that the additional unit, i.e. one further bedroom, is going to result in additional parking requirements that would have an adverse impact on the amenity of the area, and that the occupant of said unit is going to have an adverse impact on the amenity of the area by reason of increased litter. Is that what we're saying?
I'm suggesting there's not enough parking for the existing.
I'm seeking guidance from members because that seems what.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Just an additional one might make that difference, and then there'll be another additional one. And as Zoe was saying, that glass that's full.
Yeah, I understand the analogy. You can mop up spilt water, but you're going to be, as a council, having to defend this reason at appeal. So you need to be able to articulate it in a manner that demonstrates you've had regard to your own planning policies, your own SPD, and basically the other considerations have been raised. Now, it may assist if you're saying that this additional unit takes the concentration way, which is already over and above. If that's what you're saying, then that's fair enough. I'm not convinced that we can make a case for it, but you're entitled to come to the view.
Councillor Gaskell.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to me that we're held over a barrel by the planning, to be honest, on this. You've got public view, don't want it. There's councillors here that look at it and think it's overdeveloped. However, planning are telling us that, you know, you can refuse it, but next time through, it's going to go through. Kind of makes you wonder what we're doing here.
Yep. Okay, so.
I think, through you, Chair, I think the advice from officers is that or the guidance from officers is about the need for robust grounds for refusal.
So do we think the grounds that Councillor Phillips has proposed are robust enough to defend, or are you still happy to second this, yeah? Okay. Should we take a vote on this?
So I think, Chair, we have a proposal for refusal on the grounds that the application would result in adverse impacts on the amenity of the area by way of increased litter, adverse impacts in terms of additional parking, and does that cover it? Over expansion of the area was mentioned, but I think that may be more a general term rather than.
Again,
yep.
For you, Chairman, clearly, not clearly, but I think what members are saying is that the area is already oversubscribed by HMOs, etc. And that's demonstrated by the concentration map, and that this additional unit is 1 unit too far. And by virtue of that, it's increasing demand for parking way beyond what would be accounted for under existing policies, is what you seem to be saying. But that's for you to take a view on that.
Okay. Do you wish to summarise again, or are you happy with?
We can put the over concentration in there. We can draft something.
Okay. All those in favour of the proposal from Councillor Phillips? Those against? Any abstentions? Sorry? Yeah, it was 4 in favour, no rejections and 5 abstentions. So that's motion carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 8, which is number 6, Banbury Lane, Byfield. I will now hand over to Eamon McDowell, the case officer. Oliver Billing is away to begin the presentation.
Yeah, he's away on holiday, enjoying himself, and I've been left to present this one. So here we go. The application before members is an application for replacement of a existing two-storey rear extension to an existing dwelling to include a new two-storey extension to include 4 numbered roof windows and associated alterations. The application site lies within the pretty much within the centre of the village. It's a relatively high densely sort of developed area with a bit sort of higgledy-piggledy gardens, as I would describe it. But the plot itself sits between number 8 to the west, which is a listed building, and number 2 and number 4 to the east, which share sort of an unusual sort of arrangement in terms of garden space, etc. The proposal, basically, this is just an aerial photograph of the village scene, as it were. The proposal, as you can see from that drawing, proposes a new two-storey extension, which sits well off the boundary with both neighbours. We'll have a blank elevation to the west, with the exception of a ground floor window at ground level, and a blank elevation to the nearest neighbour to the east. In terms of the application itself, it has been the subject of fairly extensive negotiations between officers, conservation officers, and the applicants themselves to reduce it and get it into a format that officers can bring to members this evening to recommend approval for. So just in the context of the existing elevations, that's the existing two-storey extension, which sort of projects about 2 to 3 metres from the rear. That's to be replaced. It's got a cat slide roof. That's to be replaced by this extension. As I don't know if you can pick it up on here, but it has been reduced as a result of the negotiations away from the ridge of the existing. The eaves levels have also been dropped, and it will be constructed in ironstone to match the existing properties in the area, so it's very much typical of local vernacular. As I said, the site sits fairly snugly between adjoining properties, so there will be an impact on adjoining properties. To the left-hand side, the left-hand photograph, you can see the windows and the white extension of the neighbouring property, which is probably the most affected property. The extension doesn't go any closer to that neighbour than sort of existing, so the 2 windows you see on the left-hand side will still be retained. And in terms of sort of garden space, these drawings just show a relationship to the adjoining neighbours. The right-hand photograph shows looking across the back end of the property towards the nearest neighbour. That neighbour has a rear projecting single-storey extension with a doorway that you can see, but on the end of that extension is quite a large bay window, which affords light into that particular room. Say, on balance, officers have had regard to the impact on the setting of the listed buildings, have had regard to our duty to consider the impact on neighbouring properties, and have come to the view that the proposal is acceptable on planning terms and accordingly recommending the application be approved, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Could we, you've come back to the photo actually that I wanted to see, I think. So from the elevation from the neighbour that don't have the blank wall, so this, is that the west elevation?
Yeah.
Is there a window on that elevation?
There will be a window on that elevation at ground floor.
At ground floor level.
Just go to the
But there's a fence.
drawings. So that would be looking out onto the blank wall of the listed building. And on the other elevation, that would be the blank elevation presenting to the other neighbour with the white single-storey extension with the side doorway and the big sort of bay window at the end.
So they just have the roof windows?
They'll just have the roof windows.
Roof lights. And how high are they from the floor?
Good question. I'm sure I'll leave that to the agent, but it's usually around about 2 metres, something like that.
To the bottom of the roof. Okay, so you can't stand and look out. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Again, you can see from that elevation, you get an idea of the floor level.
Yeah.
And those roof lights are sort of halfway up that window.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? No. Okay. So as a correction to the agenda, there is one speaker, which is Andrew Fraser, the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Andrew Fraser, I'm the applicant, and I'm speaking to outline the reasons we believe the Planning Officer's recommendation should be followed and that our householder planning application approved. The application has been brought to committee this evening with a recommendation for approval. I do not wish to repeat the committee's report, but wanted to make the following points to aid the committee's understanding of the project. As you will be aware from the submitted documentation, the main aim of this application is to replace and improve upon an existing extension to the rear of our home. It is thought that the extension was added in the late 1800s when little was known about the importance of insulation values and construction quality in comparison to today's standards. The current brick-built extension is uninsulated, meaning that it's freezing in the winter, we have issues with condensation and persistent mould, which is not ideal for our young family. My wife Emily grew up in Byfield. She attended the village school and her parents still live in the family home not more than a quarter of a mile down the road. We purchased this property in 2021 as our forever family home, and for that reason we wanted to ensure any alterations were done properly and respectful to the rest of the village. We appointed a local firm who have over 45 years of experience designing similar extensions in the local area. Although the proposal will make a huge difference to how we use our property, it extends less than a further 3 metres into our generous garden. We've followed the planning process outlined by West Northamptonshire Council and have followed the recommendations of both the Council's planning and heritage officers to amend the proposals in line with the feedback of all parties consulted on the application. Through this process, we believe that we've worked collaboratively with the Council to come to a well-considered proposal which has their support. We've remained open to communications with our neighbours, and we have attended the latest Parish Council meeting to acknowledge and discuss any remaining local concerns. We take great pride in being part of the village community and want our home to be a pleasant and well-presented space to raise our family for years to come. We're also reassured by the Planning Officer's conclusion that the proposals would not cause any substantial overlooking impact on neighbouring properties, as this is something we've sought to avoid through the design. To summarise, the amended proposals receive no objections from the Heritage and Planning Officers, subject to conditions that we are confident we can adhere to. The approval of this replacement extension would make a great impact on how we live by improving access to our garden, increasing natural light levels in our property, and providing a more suitable living environment to raise our young family in, which is something we would love to do in Byfield. Thank you very much for taking the time to consider this application.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Frost.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. you'll be aware that as a committee, if we approve your application, we have to be we have to assure ourselves that that it will, according to RA 2C Part 6, protect the amenity of existing residents. I presume that you are of the opinion that it will protect the amenity of existing residents, and if so, could you elaborate on how? Because obviously in the report, some people have a differing opinion, shall we say?
Yeah, so I think certainly there was a question previously about the elevations. So there is currently no first floor elevations, so we do not have any overlooking directly to number 8 or to number 4. The roof lights are above 2 metres, so we are not able to look out from our bedroom in either direction. The back of the property, or the proposed extension, will not extend any further, and actually it is, trying to find my words, the neighbour's first floor kitchen extension actually extends further than our property, so we do not believe there will be a light impact, as the majority of our light is kind of provided by this large bay window. So for those reasons, I would suggest.
Thank you, Chair. One more supplementary question, if I may. So I hear you loud and clear, but, and presumably you've put those. I'm just trying to reconcile these conflicting views, if you like. And have you debated this yourselves with existing residents, and how did that go? In other words, why are we still at this? Why are we still getting conflicting?
Yeah, so obviously, as I think the report referred to, we've had an objection from number 4, but we had a letter of support from number 2. So from the extension, as it comes out, the window you can see directly. I'm just trying to find these photos. As the other gentleman referred to, the layout is very strange in that the window that will look directly at the plane elevation of our extension is actually number 2, and it's number 2 that raised a letter of support. So for me, the neighbours that would be most affected by seeing the new extension are the neighbours who are supporting.
Sorry, number 8. What do you think? What do they think?
So number.
Yeah, that's right. Number 8, the listed.
Right. So unfortunately, the owner of number 8's recently passed away. I can't remember when that happened. Before. Yeah. Okay. We haven't been able to engage with the daughter and son for number 8.
Okay. Any further questions from the committee? No, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions you wish to come back on?
Not really, Chairman, other than the officer's report sets out in detail this application has been subject to quite lengthy negotiations between the applicants, and they've responded positively such that they've overcome the advice of the heritage officer who had previously been concerned, and have addressed the concerns of the planning officer who has actually visited both sides. So, I mean, the planning officer has, take a look at this photograph, gone into the neighbours' properties, and you can see that there is, I mean, it is a village sort of set up, so there's already mutual overlooking, shall we say, and that's not made any worse by this particular proposal. Yes, the extension projects out, but it doesn't project out any further than that photograph on the left is the big window that serves that white single-storey extension we referred to in the earlier presentation. So, again, it's a balancing exercise with all applications, and we think the applicants responded positively, such that we're in a position to recommend the application for approval, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So at this point now we move to debate the application.
Yeah, I just want to say I completely agree with Eamon's recommendation. I think it is a balancing act, and I think they've sort of done everything they can to make sure that the best negotiation it came to. So, yeah, that's just what I want to say. Okay. I would be happy to propose.
Okay. Is Councillor Rainbird?
Yeah, I'll be quite happy to second that proposal.
Okay, so is there any other questions or anything? No? Okay. Do you wish to summarise on that?
So the proposal is to accept the recommendations in the officer's report.
Yeah, okay. At which point we'll move to a vote. So all those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Just one. Okay. So that's carried. We now move to item 9, which is number 45 Greenfield Avenue, Northampton. I'll now hand over to Case Officer James Luntz to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a retrospective application for the change of use of 45 Greenfield Avenue from a 3-bedroom property to an HMO for up to 6 residents. The change of use occurred in April this year, and the single garage has been converted into a habitable room. The property itself has a large kitchen diner and 3 letting rooms on the ground floor, 2 of which have ensuite bathrooms. On the first floor, there are 3 further letting rooms which share a bathroom. That slide shows the property itself with a driveway in front of it towards the junction with, I forget which road that is, St Albans Road and Greenfield Avenue. The next slide shows that as been described before, the policy background for HMOs is there's general support for HMOs where they have no impact on the local character or neighbour amenity, and that they adhere to the 4 principles set out in the Council's SPD. In this case, the principle 1, in terms of over-concentration or concentration of HMOs, the next slide shows that there are no HMOs in the 50-metre radius surrounding the property, and as such, the principle 1 is considered to have been met. Principle 2 seeks to ensure that HMOs have appropriate facilities and amenities, and in this case, the floor plans show the property has adequate room sizes and number of bathrooms which are above the size threshold set out in the SPD. The property has, as I said, a kitchen diner of 24 square metres, and although the wording of the SPD is a kitchen living room, it's considered that this arrangement is acceptable as it's a space that's large enough for occupants to use and socialise in a space that is not their bedrooms. I've explained that the 2 bedrooms on the ground floor have ensuite bathrooms, and then there is a single bathroom on the first floor which will be shared by the 3 bedrooms upstairs and the 1 on the ground floor. The plans also show that the property has a reasonable large rear garden, providing occupants with private outdoor amenity space, and a secure cycle storage unit will be located in the rear garden of the property. The plans do not show a bin storage area, and given the potential for increase in waste generated by HMOs, proper bin storage should be provided with sufficient number of bins to ensure that rubbish is contained and does not cause an issue for neighbours. This has been raised as a point of concern by neighbours, and as a result, the condition will be recommended to be added to the permission should the committee approve the application, requiring details of a bin storage area and number of bins to be submitted and agreed by the LPA. It should be noted there is sufficient space in the rear garden for setting that out, and also there is access down the side of the property to allow bins to be taken out on collection day. Principle 3 deals with flood risk. As you can see on the slide, the property is in flood zone 1 and is at low risk of flooding, and as a consequence, principle 3 has been met. Principle 4 is to do with highway safety and parking, and a HMO for a 6-person HMO would require effectively 6 off-road parking spaces. In this instance, it can't provide 6 off-road spaces, and the principal criteria suggests that a parking beat survey should be submitted to demonstrate there is capacity in the area. However, such survey was not submitted, but it should be noted that parking is not restricted on Greenfield Avenue, and there are at least 5 bus stops within 400 metres of the property, and there is also a local centre located approximately 350 metres to the south on Broadmead Avenue. Highway officers were consulted but have not objected to the proposal, only stating that the property needed to provide 6 secure cycle parking spaces, which the applicant has provided. Overall, it's considered that the proposal meets the criteria set out in Principle 4, and in general, the officers are satisfied that the proposal for a 6-person HMO meets the development plan policies and the SPD principles, and recommend the application is approved.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point now we move to any questions from the committee? Councillor Smith.
Just with regard to both the bin storage and the cycle storage, which there's a recommendation of a condition on, this application is retrospective, which means this property is already operating as a HMO. So I'm just wondering about that time of 3 months, given that presumably the impact of rubbish and the impact regarding any parking or cycle storage issues must be ongoing currently. Is there any way of shortening that 3 months to lessen the impact on neighbours to this existing HMO?
We suggested 3 months just to be reasonable to the applicant. However, if members decide that they want to shorten that time period in the condition, then it is within your remit to be able to reduce that time period.
Any further questions? Councillor Breeze?
Thank you. So this was operating as an unlicensed HMO until enforcement became aware of it? Sorry, yeah.
Yes, that's my understanding.
So if it was operating as an unlicensed, when you look at the concentration, do you look at other unlicensed HMOs in the area? Do you look at all known HMOs or just the licensed ones?
I believe the database looks at effectively all known HMOs and includes potential licence application ones as well, and that's shown as whether they are potential HMOs in the future. It's not something that I know a great deal about, but it's someone else, another officer in the council, that deals with that.
Actually, Eamon, do you know, is it the case that the concentration includes known unlicensed or just licensed, or?
I'm just looking at the that overhead. I mean, it shows licensed HMOs, expired license. So I mean, I'm going by the the database that we hold, sort of retains a record of what's around there. I mean, the facts remain that in respect of this particular site, that's the concentration that's before members for consideration.
So licensed or expired license? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading off that key. So.
Any further questions from the committee? No? Okay. We'll now move to Teresa Elkin on behalf of a number of local residents.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. My name is Teresa Elkin. I'm a resident of Greenfield Avenue. The increased problems associated with number 45 Greenfield Avenue being used as an unlicensed HMO have contributed to the existing aggravation and problems that neighbours have to tolerate in the district. We have witnessed the conversion of number 45 for an HMO. One neighbour has a considerable skill and experience in building and is concerned that the building codes have not been properly adhered to, conversion of the garage with a lack of adequate foundation and insulation, etc. His attempt to see the plans submitted by the landlord to the council for building regs have been denied, citing that the landlord's builder had self-certified the conversion. This leaves neighbours to rely on the very simple plans submitted for the HMO application. These show that the upper floor plan does not sit over the ground floor plan and seems to be on a different scale, thus making it impossible to reliably scale the plans to assess the minimum floor area. The staircase plan ends at a blind wall with no landing. There is one upstairs bathroom for 4 of the bedrooms. Therefore, fitting 6 lettable rooms into a previous 3-bedroomed house simply is not reasonable. Separate to the HMO problems, we have constant nuisance with speeding riders of unlicensed, uninsured motorcycles around school times. Along with recent arson attacks on property, burglaries and unpleasant graffiti, we do not want any further potential issues that intrude on our right to enjoy our own homes and feel safe and secure. Adjacent properties to number 45 have a right to enjoy their own property and gardens. Emanating from number 45 has been noise, especially at unsociable hours, the smell of cannabis and abandoned rubbish. A neighbour's teenage daughter has been reluctant to go into their own garden as they've been aware of persistent viewing of them from upstairs windows of number 45. Comments have been shouted from the property. There have been 2 verbal assaults and threatening behaviour towards me by a tenant of number 45. This has been documented in our objection posted online. There is no control over rubbish bags piled up on the pavement outside number 45 any day of the week, which obstructs people in mobility scooters with wheelchairs and pushchairs, causing them to have to travel on the road. This is close to a 4-way junction that is getting busier. There's also been a dramatic increase in rats in adjacent properties as bags are abandoned on the pavement. They are often torn with rubbish spilling out. Residents have witnessed rats amongst the rubbish. There have been more cars and vans parked on the road and the pavement around number 45, and they protrude from the drive, again forcing pedestrians and children to walk in the road. As residents, we recognise the 2 local houses that support care in the community for residents receiving 24-hour support, which are excellent and part of the rich fabric of our society. However, there are 21 flats being developed at the end of St Albans Road by the council, which we are concerned may affect the well-being of residents in the community additionally. We all work hard to create a safe and secure environment in which our families can
conclude
thrive
your statement,
and enjoy
please?
life.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Rainbird.
So with this being acting as an unlicensed HMO already, you'd say it's impacting your quality of life, your privacy and noise, and obviously you talked about the rubbish with
Correct.
the rats.
Yes.
And would you say with this happening, would you say is that a possible increase in crime rate with, like you said, the motorbikes?
Yes, I mean, obviously we can't give you any statistics, but as neighbours, we're all aware of the impact it's having in the community. And some of us have had to employ our own people privately to deal with the rat problem that we're now encountering in our own gardens and homes as a result of this. Rubbish and bags on the street, there are literally people having to come off the pavement and into the road to get around that. And this is just not acceptable behaviour.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. Are you aware of any of the problems we've had, particularly with antisocial behaviour, being reported to the police or to the council?
I can't speak for other people, but I know that with myself, I was verbally assaulted by one of the tenants. I didn't take it to the police because I felt, to me, it was upsetting to me and threatening to me, but it didn't seem to be serious enough to make it a police incident. I was also very, very aware that the person who verbally assaulted me knew where I lived. And so I didn't want to cause any other potential threat to myself.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No. Councillor McMurtry.
Yeah, I just want to. We have to make decisions based on the application in front of us. I just want to know that it's an issue with the HMO itself and not the residents who live in the HMO.
It is absolutely that.
Okay,
Yes, yes, we are more than happy for whoever lives in the property. We just want to make sure that they're living in a safe and secure property and that they respect the property and the community that they're living in. And most of that responsibility, I think, is down to the landlord as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll call on Councillor Adrian Cartwright, who's the local ward member.
Thank you, Chairman. You've heard the concerns from local residents about some of the material planning considerations they have. I also have material planning considerations. Firstly, the turning of the garage into living space allows for only one vehicle to park in the property for all the inhabitants. Secondly, now that we're in the 21st century, we should be looking to support our less abled constituents. And as a property is to change of use from a single family house to a HMO, I believe the property should be wheelchair accessible and even the ground floor rooms made habitable for disabled tenants. So I looked at the application process paperwork and could find no mention of any of these considerations being taken into account. Also, while not necessarily a planning consideration on its own, I discovered that the work required to carry out a change in use from a garage to habitable living space, the conversion works are subject to building regulations, as in the depth of any footings for support, strength of materials, insulation size, and what have you. It seems the applicant was aware of this as he applied for a building inspector to check and authorise the work, but that request reads as cancelled on the website. There's no sign of a new application on file for a new building inspector to visit and sign off the works to building regulations approved standards. When I've previously seen major works like this being carried out, the builder's always taken lots of photographs with tape measures showing the sizes, depths and dimensions of the building materials in case they may need to self-certify and provide the evidence that the work has been carried out to building regulations. I couldn't see that on the file where the applicant has done this, even to offer self-certification. This causes me great concern, as you and the committee are being asked to retrospectively approve a planning application which could have serious consequences with no evidence that the legal standards have been met to provide a safe home for the tenants. While West Northants Council may compartmentalise all the separate decisions into different departments, the Health and Safety Executives seem to penetrate these departments with no difficulties. Health and Safety Executives use corporate responsibility as a means that no matter whether it's planning, building regs or licensing that drop the ball, it's the people at the top who are ultimately responsible. It seems to me that this committee has been put right in the firing line and that you will now have to consider the information brought to you and make your decision accordingly. And as this is a retrospective application and the work has already been carried out, I believe that you should have some leeway before making the decision to consider all of the facts. Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No. Okay. As a change to the lineup of speakers, obviously Mr. Fraser spoke in the previous item, so there is no speaker for the applicant in this item. So we now ask the officer if there's anything he wishes to come back on.
I don't think there is, only that obviously the highway officer hasn't objected on highway grounds. Obviously the antisocial behaviour is something that committee can take into account, but other than that, as an application, it adheres to the planning policies and the council's SPD in terms of a change of use. Building regs is a separate matter, and it is not part of this decision for this committee, but obviously it's something you can take into account if that's how you want to proceed. But other than that, yeah, as an application, it does meet planning policy.
Okay, thank you. So now we move to the committee to debate the application. Sorry?
Can I query?
Councillor
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that Mr. Fraser spoke for the previous application?
That's correct, yeah.
So can he not speak on another application?
He's not, no, he's not here, he's gone.
He's gone, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It was, yeah.
Through you, Chair, it was a typo. He was listed in the wrong place.
Oh, okay, that's right then.
We can go and get him for you if you want. Okay, so now we move to debate the application. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of concerns based on what I've heard. I'm trying to think in terms of the material considerations. I think that the material reason upon which we could turn it down if we were minded to would be the impact on residential amenity. We could take into account the impact within the context of whether it looks at overdevelopment, turning a 3-bed property into a 6-person HMO, and what the impact of that amount coming and going are. We've heard about real concerns around behaviour that cannot necessarily be taken as an assumption or sit within the context of it as a planning application, but in terms of saying we felt that 6 people would have an undue impact on residential amenity, that might be a material planning reason that we could take into consideration. I'm leaning towards recommending refusal on the basis of that. If the view of the committee as a whole was to recommend approval, then I would want to see the period of notice on the cycle storage and bin storage reduced considerably, ideally to immediately, because this is not a property that's about to go into use as a HMO. It's a property that is currently, as we've heard, having a considerable impact, at least in part because of the lack of that condition, and I think that would need to happen immediately. I'd also really like reassurance to completely recognise that as a planning committee, the issues raised in terms of building safety, building regs, antisocial behaviour enforcement upon improper use of the HMO does not sit with this committee, but I would really like to hear reassurances that the council departments that it does sit within will receive this information and act upon it. My inclination would be to recommend refusal on the grounds of residential amenity, but I would like those other comments taken into account if the committee as a whole is minded to accept the application.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Rainbird.
So I'd like to just add on to that, Councillor Zoe Smith, with the, like you said, the impact on neighbour amenities, and I'd just like to point out the possible rise in crime, like one of the residents has mentioned, impact on health with the increase in rats, with all the rubbish being left out, not being put into proper designated bins, and having nowhere to store them, and also parking, like Councillor, has also mentioned the parking. There's only one car spot on the drive, and obviously I know it's been mentioned that there is no, trying to find words here, no impact in such of, there's no like double yellow lines or that such, but I'd like just the committee to take all that into consideration as well. I'd be leaning towards agreeing with Councillor Zoe Smith in refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Rainbird. Any further? Councillor Gaskell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We've got to look at it from a material, side of it. At the end of the day, other than the structure of the garage, we've got to take that for granted at the end of the day, because that's a separate issue. And you've got to look at material objections. You've got a family house there, 4 people, and they're going to increase it by 2 more. And we've got to look at, I don't think there's enough grounds to refuse it, with what you say. And I understand from what the neighbours are saying and things like that, but this is happening everywhere. And if this come back to an appeal, there's no grounds to stand up against that. So though I do feel for the neighbours for this, but I can't come in with a predetermined thinking that, it's a rough area, the neighbours are getting this much trouble and everything like that. That's kind of like making a prejudgment ahead of that, which I can't do. So I'm kind of like, I can't really say no to it. So I'm just trying to put it out there, really, what other people thinking of that one. We've got to look at a material objection, and I don't think that's sufficient, personally.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gaskell. Councillor McMurtry.
I just want to ask, sorry, so are you going on the basis in alignment with Northampton Town Council of overdevelopment and also parking? Are those the material considerations that you're going for refusal with?
I wouldn't be, I mean, parking is a material consideration. It's a material consideration, as we've heard, that, contrary to what we might feel, doesn't necessarily carry a lot of weight. However, and we haven't, what I don't feel we've got, which might have been the case with other applications, is a comment from Highways that acknowledges a problem in this area. Some other applications, Highways or police have confirmed that parking is a problem in the area, and I don't think we've got that here. So I think the material grounds that would carry the most weight and be defensible at appeal would be the impact on residential amenity, saying that 6 people is doubling the number of bedrooms that would be occupiable by the house, and that we feel the planning inspectorate historically, with other appeals where we have had an appeal upheld, said that 6 people in a HMO was an undue amount of comings and goings, and the impact in terms of movement of people working different shift patterns and going out and about as compared with the family wasn't unacceptable. We've had one application in the past where the planning inspector upheld the view of the planning committee that that was an unacceptable amount of coming and going, and they used the phrase neighbouring residential amenity as the material consideration. And I think, taking into account what's been said, that we can't take into account the behaviour of the people who might be in there at the moment in the planning terms, but as a term of impact on residential amenity in terms of coming and goings would be something that would be in line with something the planning inspectorate has upheld in the past.
Okay, Councillor Wertry.
I was just going to say, yeah, thanks for that, Zoe Smith. I just wanted to see the officers' opinions about how that would hold up if we were going to go down that route of local amenities. Yeah, anyone wants to comment?
That's one for you, members. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know how an inspector will view it. Councillor Smith's referred to one appeal. There are other appeals where similar issues have been raised and inspectors have set them aside. Each application on its own merits. You've heard the discussion and the officers admit there's no insufficient space to provide adequate off-street parking, but there are no objections from the Highway Authority. You've also heard that this property is going to be over-intensively used, and it's going to be used by individuals unconnected with each other who will have their own comings and goings in a residential street where that may well impact on neighbours. If that's what's tipping the balance in terms of members' considerations, you're perfectly entitled to go down that route. I'm not a betting man, so I'm not going to suggest whether or not that'll be successful at appeal, but as members, you're entitled to come to that view.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay. So does anyone wish to move to a proposal? Councillor Smith.
I don't know whether the convention generally is to see if anybody will propose an acceptance. I would be prepared to propose a refusal, but I would give people the opportunity to propose an acceptance of the officer's recommendations if anybody would like to.
Okay. Does anyone wish to propose acceptance of the application? Nope. Okay. So, Councillor Smith?
I would propose a refusal on the grounds of neighbouring residential amenity.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rainbird?
Yes, I'd like to second that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to summarise?
Could I just clarify?
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
You've indicated an impact on detrimental to residential amenity, but you haven't indicated by what reason. Now, from the debate, it seems to be by reason of the increased comings and goings of the individuals living at the premises. Is that right?
Yeah. The difference between occupation by a related family and occupation by 6 unrelated individuals, their coming and goings and their impact and increase on impact on the residential amenity of neighbours.
Okay.
That's pretty much said it.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So we now move to a vote. So those in favour of Councillor Smith's proposal? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's in favour of Councillor Smith's proposal. We now move to item 10, which is Linfield, Duncott Road, Duncott. I will now hand over to the case officer, James Luntz, to begin the presentation.
It's me again, I'm afraid. Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the property known as Linfield in Duncott, which is a small hamlet located between the A5 and Greens Norton, which is a couple of kilometres northwest of Towcester. The property occupies a corner plot and has a driveway off a small access road which serves a number of properties on to the northwest, including Duncott Farm. Duncott is considered to be within the open countryside. The application is for a two-storey side extension and a single-storey rear extension. Councillor Manners has called in the application on the grounds of inappropriate design and potential impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties in terms of overshadowing. The initial plans were for a very wide and large two-storey side extension and single-storey rear extension. The two-storey element was the same height as the existing house, and this was considered unacceptable by officers. And we sought amendments to reduce the scale of the scheme. Plans obviously went through a number of amendments, and plans in front of you today are now considered to be acceptable and in accord with the local plan policies and the council's design guide. The existing house was built in the early 1970s, and it has a single-storey double garage set back from the front of the house and a small single-storey rear extension. The house is constructed out of a yellowish-orange brick with a tiled roof. In terms of the actual proposal itself, as you can see on the screen, it's on the ground floor. The extension extends by approximately 6.5 metres on the ground floor, with only 5 metres at first floor level. That's been done to reduce the bulk of the first floor element of the extension and to pull it further away from the boundary of the neighbouring property. The side extension is set back from the front elevation of the existing house and is approximately 0.63 metres lower than the existing ridgeline. Officers are therefore satisfied that the proposed extension is subservient to the host dwelling and is in accordance with the local plan policy and design guide. In terms of the single-storey rear extension, this will stretch across the whole rear of the property, but it's important to note that it will utilise the footprint of the existing double garage, albeit that will be extended by approximately a metre to the rear. And then the remainder of the extension goes across the back of the house to the southeast corner. That will create a new lounge, dining room and utility room, and although it appears large on the proposed plans, the single-storey extension is actually relatively small and in theory could be undertaken by the applicant under permitted development rights. The ground floor of the side extension will also add a new bedroom with ensuite and downstairs toilet, and the remaining rooms will be reorganised into form a family room and a larger kitchen on the ground floor. On the first floor, this will be reorganised, and with the proposed extension will provide 3 bedrooms, 2 with en-suites and a family bathroom. In terms of materials, it's proposed to construct the extension out of a brick that closely matches the existing. You can see on the screen the existing property in its yellowy orange brick, and the one on the right shows the property with the neighbouring property, which is a local, more historic cottage, which is made of local ironstone. Whilst that colour may not be necessarily approved today, it is more appropriate to use a matching brick than to use an alternative material or clad or render the whole of the existing house, which would not be economically viable for the applicant. It should be noted that although the adjacent houses to the northwest are constructed of local stone, the surrounding houses in the hamlet are mixed in terms of materials, including a reddish multi-coloured stock brick and render, and also just plain red brick. Overall, therefore, officers recommend that the matching brick is the more appropriate option. Later, there's some photographs which I'll show of the area, which will help explain the reasons. These photographs just simply show that the rear of the property, which you can see the double garage, which extends into the rear garden, and effectively will be enclosed by the rear extension. In terms of overshadowing, the applicant has submitted a sunshade clip which shows the potential impact of the proposed extension on the neighbouring property. It wasn't possible to grab a screenshot of an appropriate time to be able to show today, but given the orientation of the property, what it shows is that there'll be a small degree of shadowing on the neighbouring driveway and side wall in the early morning, but quickly that shadowing moves back into the application site and does not affect the property any further. Therefore, officers consider on balance that the proposed extension would not have a material impact on the amenity of neighbours in terms of overshadowing or loss of light. Greens Norton Parish Council has submitted a further request that if permission is granted, that they would like a condition added to the decision notice which requires all vehicles associated with the construction of the extension to park on the site. This is due to the narrow nature of the side road and the fact that not only it serves a few houses to the northwest, but also a working farm which has farm vehicles travelling up and down that road, and it shouldn't be blocked. The wording they've proposed is set out in the addendum report. Councillor Mann has also sent further representations stating that he feels the site is as it's in the open countryside, the expectation of policy SDP1 for extension should be appropriate to their location, and in his view the design is inappropriate and does not take into account the fact that the site is adjacent to the ancient part of the hamlet. As explained, the officers consider the design to be of appropriate scale and appearance, and although the site is adjacent to more traditionally built dwellings which use local ironstone, the surrounding houses in the hamlet are mixed in terms of materials, and ultimately it's acceptable for the proposed extension to be constructed using a matching brick to the host dwelling. And it's worth noting that the adjacent buildings are not listed and this isn't a conservation area. The following photographs just show those properties directly opposite the site. If you can go to, is a pair of semi-detached cottages which have a render on the front and this red mottled brick extension to the rear, which also has a step down to a single-storey element with a lean-to roof similar to the proposed extension on the application site. And if you go to the next slides, is there no? Oh, maybe it didn't save. Essentially, the front of those properties, it's got a pink render, and the next door neighbour has a yellow render. Other properties to the other side of the application site are constructed of red brick. So it is officers' opinion that the general area is mixed in character, and constructing an extension in a brick to match the existing dwelling wouldn't adversely affect the character or appearance of that area. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a written statement from Councillor Charles Manners, local ward member, to be read out by the Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair. So, statement from Councillor Manners. I apologise for not being present this evening. However, I am away on business. I would like to object to this planning application on the basis that Duncott is an ancient hamlet and counts as open countryside, and therefore policy SPD1 states that extension should be appropriate to their context. The neighbouring houses and street scene for this lane originate from the 1600s. The proposal in front of you today is not appropriate to the Duncott context. I note that the roof has only been reduced by 63 centimetres, which is not truly subservient to the host dwelling as required by South Northants Design Guide 2017. A lower ridge height with dormer windows would have been demonstrably more compliant with the principle of development criteria to prevent an unacceptable impact on the amenities of neighbouring occupiers. The proposed materials, brick, roof tiles, plastic windows, does not respond sensitively to the existing character, scale and pattern of development in the area. Good placemaking requires developments to strengthen the identity and legibility of place, which this scheme fails to achieve. The current building is a 1970s box, and the proposal will do nothing to enhance the building and local area, if anything will compound matters. Cladding the existing building in ironstone, adding a reclaimed brick extension to match the house opposite, and putting a slate roof across both parts would have significantly improved the appearance of the house and its setting. There are a mix of house styles on the main Duncott Road, but Linfield's entrance is located on the side of Duncott Lane, where all the houses are ironstone and slate. The argument the materials are planning compliant to SS2 because they are similar to existing is fallacious, because those materials should have never been allowed in the first place. Planning consent in the 1970s should not be a benchmark for planning decisions now. I also ask that there is a condition that the single-storey extension at the side and back cannot be increased to double-storey at a later date. In summary, the application lacks the placemaking quality expected of modern, sustainable development to complement the hamlet and undermines the opportunity to create a distinctive property at the corner of the village. Your committee should be highlighting and approving best practice and urge you to firstly defer this application and conduct a site visit, and or refuse this application and request that a more contextually responsive and community orientated proposal be brought forward.
Thank you. So are there any questions at this point? Or Councillor Breeze?
Thank you. An observation. Looking at the elevations from the front, the plans and the photos, the roof line is different. Roof, if you look at the front elevation, see that? It's got a, I don't know what you call that, it's a gable end.
It's just the oddity of the photograph on Google Earth, and the way
It is a distortion, is it?
It is normal, and it is like this, the elevations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Yes, I can see how it might be.
Yeah, when you look from different angles.
Anyone else? Any questions? Any points you wish to come back on?
Whilst the, as I said in my presentation, whilst the existing brick is perhaps not something we would necessarily approve today, it is an existing dwelling of that type, and to use a brick that they found that matches very closely is appropriate and does accord with local plan policy and the design guide.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point now we move to debate in the, amongst the committee. So, anyone wish to make a start? Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there does seem to be a higgledy-piggledy mismatch within that little hamlet, so I don't believe that it does look out of place, and the proposals are very similar to the properties around it from the photographs and looking on Google Maps. So I'm leaning towards it's fine unless anybody can tell me why it isn't. Thank you.
Councillor Gaskell.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know why they just didn't pull it down, put a bigger house there to match everything. It would make more sense. No, all you're doing here, you're extending a 70s house with 70s extension, and I can't see much wrong with that. It's not going to look out of place. It's already, if they want to say it's out of place already. So there's nothing to me that says it's going to look out of place. And to be honest, they should have just kept it the same height, personally, but that's me. Because it would look better as one whole unit rather than looking at it step down. Because if you look at the property over the road, you can see that's slightly abnormal. There's an obvious extension there, but if they kept it the same height, it could have looked pretty much as one unit. So, that's me.
Councillor Breeze.
I actually think it might well improve the dwelling. In fact, just on the subservient, it's a long-established principle that sort of marks the change of buildings over time, that they're often subservient, just to show that it's a different. Yeah. But in this case, to do it in anything other than the brick would be bonkers. And I think actually it will actually look like a more balanced house, in fact, with a extension on the side. So I'm happy to support it.
Anyone else wish to add anything? I'll second that. Okay. Has anyone made a proposal yet? You're proposing, yeah. And Councillor Clark is going to second that, yes? Yeah. Do you wish to summarise?
So is that...
in favour?
Clearly. The recommendations as set out in the report.
Yep. Okay, so we now move to vote on this. So all those in favour? Looks like it's unanimous. So no, sorry, against. You're against. Okay, that's one against. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so that's carried. Okay, we now move on to the final item, which is item 11, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business, and I therefore bring the meeting to a close. Just a reminder that next meeting will be the 4th of September, and that will be at the Forum in Towcester.